AITA for canceling our wedding vendors after my fiancé excluded my daughter? I'm Scott, 39, and by the time this happened, my daughter Nora was 9 and had already learned to ask careful questions adults should never make a kid ask. Brooke and I were 3 weeks from getting married. We had been together for almost 2 years, and for most of that time, I believed she understood the basic deal. I was not a single man with a daughter attached to the side of my life. I was a father. Nora was not a complication Brooke would occasionally have to work around. She was part of the package, except I hated that phrase because it made my kids sound like luggage. When Brooke first came into our lives, she seemed to understand that better than anyone. She never forced herself on Nora. That mattered to me. She did not show up on date 3 with some weird instant mom energy. She let things develop slowly. She remembered Nora hated whipped cream on hot chocolate. She knew which cereal Nora would actually eat before school. Once, when Nora had a solar system project due and got frustrated because Saturn's ring kept falling off, Brooke sat cross-legged on the living room floor for nearly an hour helping her remake it out of cardboard and fishing line. Nora still talks with her hands when she gets excited, and that night she was waving glue-covered fingers everywhere while Brooke laughed and tried to keep the dog away from Jupiter. That was the kind of thing that got me. Not grand speeches. Not Brooke telling me she was ready to be part of a family. It was small things. The biggest moment, at least in hindsight, was the flower girl dress. Brooke took Nora with her to look at dresses because she wanted Nora to have her own wedding thing. I did not go. I figured they could have a day together without me hovering. They came home with a pale blue dress, not white, because Brooke said Nora should have something she could maybe wear again. Nora carried the garment bag into the house like it contained a crown. She asked me 3 times if she really got a walk before Brooke. Yes, I told her. And then I sit with you? That's the plan. And for pictures? Of course for pictures. She looked at Brooke, not me. Brooke smiled and said, "Your family. You'll be in the family pictures." I remember that sentence very clearly now. At the time, it felt like reassurance. Later, it felt like evidence. The problem did not start with Brooke. At least, that is what I told myself. It started with her mother, Valerie. Valerie is 62 and has the kind of manners that can make an insult sound like advice. She does not yell much. She does not need to. She says things in a calm voice, then acts confused if anyone hears what she actually meant. The first comment I remember came during a cake tasting. Nora was with us because the bakery had small sample plates and Brooke had specifically told her she could vote. Nora loved one of the chocolate fillings. Valerie watched her take a second bite and said, "Well, aren't you a sweet little reminder of everything that came before?" Nora did not understand it. I did. I looked at Valerie and said, "What's that supposed to mean?" She smiled like I had misheard her. "Oh, Scott, nothing negative. Just that Brooke is joining a life with history." Brooke touched my arm under the table. "Mom is old-fashioned," she said quietly. I should have pushed harder then. Instead, I let it go. That became a pattern. Valerie started talking about the ceremony being simple, then it needed to be clean. Then she said she did not want guests confused about what kind of event they were attending. I remember laughing once because I honestly thought she was being ridiculous. What would they be confused about? I asked. Valerie shrugged. Sometimes when children from previous relationships are very involved in the ceremony, it can look less like a wedding and more like a blending ritual. A blending ritual? You know what I mean. I really don't. Brooke stepped in before I could get angrier. She means she wants the ceremony short. Valerie said, "I mean my daughter deserves a first wedding feeling." That phrase stayed with me, but at the time I filed it under Valerie being Valerie. Brooke and I had discussed boundaries with her mother before. Brooke would complain that Valerie had opinions on everything. Flowers, cake, music, table linens, whether the invitations should say together with their families. Brooke acted irritated by it. So when Valerie made comments about Nora, I kept waiting for Brooke to draw the line. Sometimes she did, at least on the surface. "Mom, stop." "Mom, Nora's in the wedding." "Mom, that's already decided." Those moments kept me calm. I thought I was watching a woman manage a difficult mother. I did not realize Brooke had started agreeing with her when I was not in the room. The first concrete thing that bothered me came from the photographer. About 6 weeks before the wedding, he emailed us a draft shot list. It was normal stuff. Bride alone, groom alone, bride with parents, groom with daughter, couple with wedding party. Then I got to immediate family. Brooke with Valerie and Russell. Brooke with Valerie. Brooke with Russell. Brooke and me with her parents. No Nora. I read the list twice. Then I texted Brooke. Did you see the photographer list? She replied a few minutes later. Not yet. What? Nora isn't an immediate family. Oh, the planner probably sent old notes. That's not an old note. She was always in those pictures. I'll fix it. I wanted to believe that was the end of it. That evening Brooke came over, kissed me, complained about traffic, and acted completely normal. When I brought up the list, she rolled her eyes and said the planner had mixed up formal portraits with kid photos. I said, she's my daughter, not a kid photo. Brooke frowned. I know that. That's not what I meant. Then what did you mean? I mean kids get restless. Maybe they put her in another section. That answer annoyed me, but it was plausible enough that I did not turn it into a fight. That is one of the things I had to admit later. I kept accepting explanations because I wanted them to be true. I was not blind. I was cooperative past the point where cooperation made sense. A week later, Nora stopped asking about the wedding. That was strange because for months she had been obsessed with it in the harmless way a 9-year-old can be. She wanted to know if the DJ would play a song she liked. She wanted to practice walking slowly down the aisle. She kept checking the weather even though the ceremony was indoors. Then suddenly nothing. The dress stayed in the back of her closet. The little shoes we bought for it stayed in their box. One night, while I was loading the dishwasher, Nora stood at the edge of the kitchen and asked, "Do I have to stay for the whole reception?" I turned around. "What do you mean?" She shrugged. "Just asking." "You want to leave early?" Another shrug. "Maybe. Why?" "I don't know." That was Nora's favorite answer when she absolutely did know. I dried my hands. "Did somebody tell you that you were leaving early?" "No." "Did Brooke?" "No." "Did Valerie?" "No." She looked down at the floor. Then she asked, "Would there be a babysitter there?" I felt something cold in my chest. Why would there be a babysitter? I don't know. "Nora." She immediately looked worried, like she was in trouble. So I softened my voice. "You're not doing anything wrong. I'm just trying to understand." She nodded. "Brooke said there might be a kids' table and maybe a room where kids can hang out if the grown-ups are doing stuff." That was not something Brooke and I had discussed. I called her later. She said I was overreacting. "It was just an idea," she told me. "Some weddings have a separate kids' space. Our wedding doesn't." I know. It was an idea. Why are you talking to Nora about ideas we never agreed to? Because she asked what the reception would be like. She asked me if she needed a babysitter. Brooke went quiet for half a second. Then she said, "Scott, this is exactly what I mean. Every tiny wedding decision becomes emotionally loaded." I remember that sentence because it was the first time I heard irritation underneath the wedding stress. What do you mean by emotionally loaded? I mean, I can't even discuss a kid's table without you acting like I'm kicking her out. That's because we already agreed she sits next to me. She can sit next to you for dinner. That was the plan. Fine. Then that's the plan. She said it sharply enough that I dropped the subject. Again. A few days after that, I found the seating chart. Brooke kept a large wedding binder at my place because we were doing most of the final paperwork there. I was looking for the vendor contact sheet so I could confirm a delivery window. Inside the back pocket was a printed seating diagram. I noticed Nora's name because it was not where it was supposed to be. Brooke and I were at the front with the wedding party. Valerie and Russell were at the closest family table. Nora was at table 14. Table 14 was near the back of the reception room and listed 6 children between 7 and 12, plus 2 adults I recognized as cousins of Brooke's. I stared at it long enough that I honestly thought I might be looking at an old draft. Then I checked the date in the corner. It had been printed 2 days earlier. When Brooke came over, I placed it on the kitchen counter. "What is this?" She looked at the page and did not react the way someone reacts to a surprise. That was the first thing I noticed. She just sighed. Mom and the planner were trying to balance tables. Nora is at the kids' table. She'd have kids her age. She's sitting with me. Scott, the head table is already crowded. We agreed she sits next to me. We agreed that months ago before the final numbers. Then who changed it? She folded her arms. Why does it matter so much where she eats for 45 minutes? I said nothing for a second. Brooke immediately softened. Okay, that came out wrong. Yes, it did. I just mean she'll probably have more fun with kids. That's not your decision to make alone. I said okay. No, you said it shouldn't matter. Brooke rubbed her forehead. I am trying to plan one day that feels like ours. There it was. One day that feels like ours. At the time, I heard a stressed bride asking for breathing room. What I should have heard was the word ours being used to exclude my child. I asked, who is ours? She looked annoyed. Come on, Scott. I'm asking. You and me. The couple getting married. And Nora is what? She's your daughter. The words landed wrong. Not our family. Not part of this. Your daughter. Brooke saw my expression. You know what I mean. I said, I'm not sure I do anymore. We argued for about 20 minutes. Nothing dramatic. No screaming. It was one of those frustrating adult arguments where every sentence gets softened just enough to avoid admitting what the fight is actually about. Brooke said Valerie was being pushy. I said Brooke kept letting Valerie make changes. Brooke said the wedding had too many moving parts. I said Nora was not a moving part. Brooke said nobody was excluding Nora. I pointed at Nora's name on table 14. Finally, Brooke grabbed the chart and said she would put it back. The next morning, she texted me a picture of a revised chart with Nora at the front table. I decided that meant the problem was solved. That choice still bothers me, because by then Nora had already noticed. Kids notice when adults start negotiating their presents. 2 days later, the planner emailed me directly. The subject line was Final Timeline Clarifications. I almost did not open it because I was in the middle of something else. When I did, the email began with normal details about arrival times, transportation, and vendor access. Then I hit a paragraph that made me read the whole thing again, confirming the child-free reception adjustment and revised ceremony lineup requested by Brooke and Valerie. Nora removed from processional staging and family transition photos. Please advise whether Scott has approved the updated parent dance timing. I thought it had to be a mistake. Not because the words were unclear, because they were too clear. I scrolled down. There was a forwarded thread under the planner's message. Brooke had approved the revised ceremony order. Valerie had written that the changes would keep the visual story clean. The planner had asked whether Nora was still doing the flower girl entrance. Brooke had replied, for now, yes, but she should transition to guest seating before the main ceremony positions. Valerie had responded, good. That keeps it from looking like a second family ceremony. Brooke had written, that's what I'm trying to avoid. I sat there with my phone in my hand and felt my face get hot. The photo list had not been a mistake. The seating chart had not been a mistake. The babysitter idea had not been a random thought. There had been a plan. I called Brooke immediately. She did not answer. I called again. She texted, can't talk, with mom finalizing shower stuff. What's up? I took a screenshot of the planner email and sent it to her. No response for 6 minutes. Then, please don't spiral before we talk. I stared at that message. I typed, did you remove Nora from the ceremony lineup? The typing dots appeared. Disappeared. Appeared again. Finally, she wrote, it's not as dramatic as that. I replied, yes or no. A full minute passed. Then came the text that ended the relationship, even though neither of us had said the words yet. The wedding is still happening, but your daughter won't be standing with us. Mom says it makes the ceremony look like a second marriage. She can still be involved earlier. I need you to understand this is important to me. I read it twice. Then I wrote, understood. That was all. I did not call. I did not threaten her. I did not send paragraphs. I did not tell her what I was about to do. Maybe that is where some people will say I crossed a line. I can understand that argument. But in that moment, I was done discussing whether my daughter deserved to be visible at my wedding. I called Joel. He has been my friend long enough to know when I am angry because I get quieter. He picked up and said, what happened? I told him. There was a long pause. Then he asked, whose name is on the contracts? That question changed the direction of the whole afternoon. I said, mostly mine. Mostly. The venue is both of us, I think. Photographer is mine. Caterer is mine. Florist is mine. DJ should be mine. Planner might be Brooke. Whose card? Mine for most deposits. Before you do anything, read everything. I said, I'm canceling. I know. Read everything first. That is why Joel is useful. He did not try to calm me down by pretending this was fixable. He also did not tell me to go nuclear. He made me slow down enough to be precise. I pulled the binder onto the dining table, opened my email, and started matching contracts to payment receipts. The venue contract had both our names, so I left it alone at first. The caterer was in my name with a balance due the following week. The photographer was in my name. The florist was in my name. The DJ was in my name. A specialty rental company for chairs and an arch was in my name. The planner was contracted by Brooke, and the cake was charged to Valerie's card. I read cancellation clauses. Some deposits were gone no matter what. Some services offered partial refunds if canceled before certain dates. The photographer would return part of the final payment. The florist would keep the deposit but cancel the remaining balance. The DJ had a cancellation fee. The caterer would return a portion because the final food order had not been locked yet. I made a simple list on paper. Vendor. Contract holder. Amount paid. Refund available. Remaining balance. Then I called them. I did not lie. I did not say Brooke had authorized anything. I said the wedding was being canceled from my side, and I wanted to terminate the contracts I personally held. A couple of vendors asked if I was sure. I said yes. The caterer told me I was inside the period where I would lose the booking deposit, but not the full balance. The photographer sounded uncomfortable and said the planner might be confused because she had just sent an updated shot list that morning. I said, that's part of why I'm calling. The florist asked where to send the refund for the overpayment. I gave my billing address. The DJ sent me a cancellation confirmation while we were still on the phone. Every email that arrived made the situation feel more real. This was not revenge in the satisfying movie sense. I was losing money. Thousands. I watched it happen line by line. I remember sitting at my dining table after the last call and thinking that I had just paid a significant amount of money to not marry someone. It felt terrible. It also felt cheaper than going through with it. I still had not heard from Brooke beyond her last text. Then, about 2 hours later, she called. I let it ring once before answering. She was furious. What did you do? Her voice was loud enough that I held the phone away from my ear. I canceled the contracts in my name. You canceled the wedding? I canceled the things I'm paying for. Scott, I am at my bridal shower. I know. No, you don't know. The planner just called me in front of everyone because the photographer asked where to send your refund. Do you have any idea how humiliating that was? I looked at the stack of contracts in front of me. You changed our ceremony without telling me. That is not the same thing. You removed my daughter. I did not remove her from the wedding. You removed her from the ceremony lineup, family portraits, and the seating plan. She was still going to be there. That's not the point. Oh my God, Scott. It was one day. That sentence did more damage than she understood. I said exactly. One day. And on that one day, when it mattered how we defined family, you decided she made the picture messy. That is not what I said. Your email says you were trying to avoid a second family ceremony. That was taken out of context. It was in a thread about removing Nora. Because my mother would not stop pushing. Then why did you approve it? Silence. Then Brooke said, you humiliated me before I even got to explain. You already explained. You texted me the decision. You didn't even call me. You made the decision without calling me. That does not give you the right to destroy everything. I said, I'm not paying for a wedding where my daughter is treated like evidence from a previous life. You are using money to control me. No, I'm refusing to spend my money on this. You did not cancel a wedding, Scott. You canceled me. I remember closing my eyes at that. Because as angry as I was, I still loved her. That was the ugly part. If I had stopped loving her, this would have been easier. I'm not marrying you, I said. The line went silent. When she spoke again, her voice was smaller. You're serious? Yes. Over this? No, because of what this proves. She hung up. Within an hour, I had calls from Valerie, Russell, and April. I ignored Valerie. I ignored Russell. I answered April because she had always been decent to Nora. She did not yell, but she was clearly angry. I'm trying to understand what happened, she said. Ask Brooke. She says you canceled vendors because Nora's place in the ceremony changed. That's not all that changed. She said Nora was still a flower girl. Not during the main ceremony. There was a pause. What does that mean? Ask your sister. Scott. She is crying in Mom's house right now. Half her friends were there when the planner called. I didn't call the planner at the shower. You knew she was there. I knew it was her shower. I did not control when the vendors contacted her. But you did it today. Yes. Why not talk to her first? I tried talking for weeks. April sighed. I thought this was just a photo thing. It isn't. She said, can you at least come talk to everyone tomorrow? I almost laughed. Everyone. Mom, Dad, Brooke, me. Just talk. I said no at first. Then April said, if you're ending this, don't you think Brooke deserves to understand why? I told her, Brooke understands why. But after we hung up, I thought about it. Not because I thought the wedding could be saved. It could not. I was thinking about Nora. There was still something I did not understand. Why had she gone from carrying that dress around like treasure to not wanting to see it? That evening I sat beside her on the couch. She was drawing on a pad with markers. I did not ask, what did Brooke say to you? That would have put words in her mouth. I said, can I ask you something about the wedding? Her shoulders tightened. That told me enough to keep my voice gentle. You're not in trouble. Okay. You haven't wanted to try your dress lately. She kept coloring. Do you still like it? Yeah. Do you still want to wear it? She pressed the marker down hard enough to flatten the tip. I don't know. Did something happen? She shook her head. Then nodded. Then shook it again. I waited. Finally she asked, are you still getting married? No. Her marker stopped. She looked up at me. Because of me? That question hit harder than anything Brooke or Valerie had said. I said no. She looked down again. Did I make it too complicated? I could barely keep my voice even. Who told you that? She did not answer. Nora, you are not in trouble. I just need to know. She picked at the paper edge. Brooke said grown-up days get hard when kids need too much. I felt my jaw tighten. What else did she say? Not bad stuff. Okay. She said the wedding would be easier for everyone if I didn't try to be in everything. I did not react the way I wanted to. I wanted to stand up and call Brooke immediately. Instead, I stayed on the couch. What did you think she meant? Nora shrugged. That I was being annoying. You weren't. She said I could still wear the dress at the beginning. I asked, did she say where you would sit? Maybe with other kids. Or with somebody watching us. Did she say you couldn't sit with me? She said you'd be busy. I had to look away for a second. Not because Nora had said anything dramatic. Because she had said it so carefully. Like she was still trying to protect Brooke from getting in trouble. I said, you never have to make yourself smaller so adults can have a nice day. She frowned. I'm not smaller. I almost laughed, and somehow that helped. I mean, you don't have to disappear. Oh, you didn't cause the wedding to stop. The adults made decisions they should not have made. I made the decision that we were not going through with it. Is Brooke mad at me? No. That answer was technically a guess, but I refused to put that burden on her. If she is mad, that's something for adults to handle. Nora was quiet. Then she said, do I still have to wear the dress? No. Can I keep it? Yes. She nodded and went back to coloring. That conversation settled the last part of my decision. The next morning, I agreed to the family meeting. Not at my place. Not with Nora there. We met at Russell and Valerie's house. Brooke was already crying when I arrived, which immediately made me feel like the villain even though I knew why I was there. That is something people do not talk about enough. You can know someone hurt you and still feel awful seeing them hurt. Russell opened the door and said, let's keep this calm. I said, that depends on everybody. Valerie was in the living room with her arms folded. April sat near the end of the couch. Brooke was in a chair with tissues in her lap. I had brought a folder. Valerie looked at it and said, are we having a business meeting? I said, you wanted an explanation. I wanted you to act like a mature man who understands he has destroyed months of work. I sat down. Brooke said, Mom. Valerie ignored her. A mature man would not burn down a wedding over a seating detail. I said, this wasn't a seating detail. It was a child's place at a reception. No. Valerie gave me that calm smile again. Scott, no one was excluding Nora. We were trying to give Brooke one day that did not feel like she was stepping into someone else's life. And how exactly do you do that when she is marrying a father? That is unfair. It's the whole issue. Russell said. Valerie only wanted the day to feel special for Brooke. I looked at him. Was Nora making it less special? He sighed. That's not what I said. Then what are we talking about? Brooke wiped her face. I should have talked to you before agreeing to changes. That's true. I was under pressure. I know. My mom kept saying people would see the ceremony as me joining your old family instead of us starting something new. I said, your old family? That's not how I mean it. That is exactly what I'm trying to understand. Valerie cut in. You had a life before Brooke. That is simply true. My daughter should not have to pretend she is comfortable being publicly framed as a replacement. Nora's presence does not make Brooke a replacement. It changes the visual. April looked at her mother. The visual? Valerie turned to her. Oh, please. You know what I mean. No, April said slowly. I'm not sure I do. I opened the folder. I want to walk through this in order. Valerie rolled her eyes. Brooke said, Scott, please. No, I'm done arguing about individual details like they happened separately. I put the photographer's original draft on the coffee table. 6 weeks out, Nora disappears from immediate family portraits. Brooke said, I told you that was a mistake. I placed the revised email thread next to it. You told me the planner made a mistake. But this came from the photographer after the planner got updated instructions. Brooke looked at the pages but did not say anything. I put down the seating chart. Then Nora gets moved from beside me to table 14 with the kids. Valerie said, children often enjoy sitting with other children. That is not the point. You keep saying that. Because you keep pretending each change is harmless by itself. I took out the planner email. Then the planner sends this. Child-free reception adjustment. Nora removed from ceremony lineup per Brooke and Valerie. April leaned forward. What? Brooke looked at her. It wasn't going to be fully child-free. Then why did the planner write that? It was wording. I said, Brooke approved it. Valerie said, because I was handling logistics. I turned the page around. Here's Brooke's reply. Brooke's face changed. Not dramatically. Just enough. April noticed too. She read the line quietly. That's what I'm trying to avoid. Valerie said. The context was the ceremony looking overly complicated. I said no. The context was Nora. Valerie said, you are determined to make this ugly. It already was. Brooke stood up. Stop. We all looked at her. She said, I made the changes. Fine. I did. Mom pushed, but I agreed. I thought if I just gave her this one thing, she'd stop criticizing everything. I asked, which one thing? Brooke's eyes flashed. You know what I mean. No. Was it the photos? The seating? The ceremony? The reception? She looked away. I said, because it seems like the one thing kept moving. Valerie said, this is cruel. I ignored her. Brooke sat back down. I was trying to keep everyone calm. I said, everyone except Nora. Brooke immediately said, do not use her against me. That was when I almost lost my temper. I did not raise my voice, but I leaned forward. I'm not using her. You spoke to her alone about making the wedding easier. Brooke froze. April looked at her. Valerie said, what are you talking about? Brooke shook her head. I did not say anything inappropriate. I said, Nora asked me if the wedding was canceled because she made it too complicated. Brooke's mouth opened. Nothing came out. I continued. She said you told her grown-up days get hard when kids need too much. That is not exactly what I said. Then tell me exactly what you said. I was trying to manage expectations. For a 9-year-old, she kept asking questions. Because she thought she was in the wedding. She was in the wedding. She thought she was family. Brooke stared at me. I hated saying it like that. But there was no softer version left. April said, Brooke, did you actually say the day would be easier if Nora didn't try to be in everything? Brooke looked at her sister. I said it would be easier if she didn't expect to be included in every adult moment. April's expression changed. Slowly. Not into outrage. Into disappointment. She's 9. I know how old she is. And you said that to her. Brooke rubbed her face. I was stressed. April sat back. I thought this was just a photo thing. Brooke snapped. It wasn't like I told her she wasn't wanted. I said, what do you think she heard? Valerie finally looked uncomfortable. Only slightly. She said, children misunderstand things. I turned to her. Then maybe adults should be careful what they say to children. Russell muttered, that's fair. Valerie looked at him sharply. He did not say anything else. Brooke started crying again. I love Nora. I believe she believed that. That was part of what made the situation hard. I said, maybe you do. She looked at me like I had slapped her. Maybe. You were kind to her when being kind was easy. This was the first time you had to choose her place in our family over your mother's approval, and you chose your mother. That's not fair. It is exactly what happened. I was scared. Of what? Of spending my wedding day feeling like a guest in your history. That was the first fully honest thing she had said. The room went quiet, not theatrically, just because there was finally a real sentence sitting there. I said, then you weren't ready to marry me. Brooke shook her head. No, I was ready to marry you. I just wanted one day where it was about us. You keep separating me from being Nora's father. I'm not. You are. You want me, but quieter. You want the part of me that does not make your wedding pictures look complicated. She said, that's not what I want. I pointed to the paperwork. Then why does every decision go in the same direction? She had no answer. I asked the question I had been waiting to ask since the planner email. If this was only your mother, why did every change need your approval? Brooke looked at Valerie. Then back at me. I don't know. I said, yes, you do. She whispered, because it was my wedding too. That was it. Not because it was cruel, because it was honest. I nodded. Yes, it was. She stared at me. And I get to decide whether I'm in it. Valerie stood up. This is absurd. You are punishing Brooke for wanting a clean start. I looked at her. A clean start from what? She did not answer. I said, from my daughter? That is not what I said. It is what you planned. Brooke said, Scott, please. We can fix this. I looked at her. 3 days earlier, those words might have mattered. Now I knew she had been changing things for weeks. You can put Nora back in the pictures, I said. You can move her chair. You can put her name back in the ceremony. That doesn't fix the fact that you wanted her out. I was under pressure. I know. You keep saying that like it doesn't matter. It matters. It explains you. It doesn't make me trust you. She cried harder. I hated that I still wanted to comfort her. I did not. I said, the wedding is not happening. Brooke covered her face. Valerie said something about wasted money. Russell said, Valerie. She snapped, what? We are all pretending he hasn't just thrown away thousands of dollars because a child got moved in a seating plan. I opened the folder again and pulled out the cancellation summary. I know exactly how much I lost. Valerie stopped. I lost the full florist deposit, part of the catering deposit, the DJ fee, the rental fee. I'm not pretending this was free. Brooke looked at me through her hands. How much? I told her. Her face crumpled again. I said, I paid that price because I am not going to spend more money trying to prove I am serious. April asked, what about the venue? Both our names are on it. I have not touched it. Russell nodded slowly. That mattered more than I expected. Maybe because it showed I had not tried to destroy everything connected to Brooke. I had canceled what I legally controlled and stopped there. Valerie sat down again. So what now? I said, Brooke and I separate our things. We deal with any shared contracts in writing. And Brooke does not contact Nora. Brooke looked up. Scott. For now, she'll think I abandoned her. She already thinks she caused this. I can explain. No. I deserve to say goodbye. That is not your decision right now. You're punishing me. I'm protecting her from another adult conversation she thinks she has to manage. Brooke started to argue, then stopped. April looked at me and said, "That's probably fair." Valerie gave her a furious look. April did not take it back. The meeting ended badly but quietly. No one threw anything. No one screamed me out of the house. I gathered the folder, said goodbye to Russell and April, and left. Brooke followed me onto the porch. She looked exhausted. "So that's it?" "Yes." "You don't even want time?" "I've had time. I just didn't know I was using it." She wiped her face. "I am sorry about what I said to Nora. I believe that too." "I know. I did not mean to make her feel unwanted." "I know." "I love you." I looked at her. "I love you too." She started crying again. That was one of the worst moments of my life. Because it would have been so much easier if love had disappeared the second trust did. It had not. I said, "But I'm not marrying you." She whispered, "You're really choosing this over us." I shook my head. "No, I'm choosing what us has to include." Then I left. The next few weeks were ugly in boring, realistic ways. Cancellations. Refund forms. Shared deposits. Calls from guests. Texts from relatives. People asking what happened. Some knew only that Brooke's fiancé canceled vendors 3 weeks before the wedding, and she found out at her bridal shower. From that version, I sounded terrible. I heard I was financially controlling. I heard I had weaponized the wedding budget. One of Brooke's cousins messaged me that disagreements about children should be handled privately, not through contracts. I did not answer. I did not post screenshots online. I did not send the planner thread to the guest list. I told my side only to the people who actually needed to know. Joel. My parents. A couple of close friends. And, because she asked directly after the family meeting, April. Brooke did not lose everyone. I want to be clear about that. Her friends stayed around her. Her parents stayed around her. Some relatives thought I overreacted even after hearing more. A few said, she made a mistake. That is true. She did. The problem was that the mistake was not one sentence. It was a series of choices. That is the part people kept wanting to reduce. They wanted the story to be about the text. It was easier that way. Fiancé sends one cruel text. Guy gets angry. Wedding canceled. But that is not what happened. The text was the first time Brooke stopped hiding the conclusion. The real story was 6 weeks of edits. Remove Nora from this picture. Move her to that table. Let her walk at the beginning, then take her out of the main lineup. Give her a kid's room. Keep the ceremony clean. Make the day feel like a first wedding. One change could have been a mistake. 5 changes were a direction. Brooke contacted me several times during the first month. At first, the messages were angry. You could have talked to me. You made me look like a monster. You knew where I was when you canceled. Then they became apologetic. I let Mom get into my head. I should have stopped her. I should never have talked to Nora without you. Then they became hopeful. We don't have to get married right away. We can do counseling. We can start over. I did not block her immediately because we still had financial things to untangle. But I kept the conversations focused on logistics. One evening she called instead of texting. I almost did not answer. She said, "I need to know if there is any chance." I told her no. She asked, "Even if I cut Mom out of wedding decisions forever?" "There is no wedding." "You know what I mean." "I do." She was quiet. Then she said, "You really think I'm that bad?" I said, "I don't think you're a monster." "That's not an answer. I think you wanted to be married to me more than you wanted the life that came with me." She cried. "I loved Nora." "I know." "Then why are you acting like none of it was real?" "I'm not." That was important to me. I did not want to rewrite the good years just because the ending was bad. Brooke had been kind to Nora. She had helped with homework. She had shown up to school things. She had remembered birthdays. Those things were real. So was the planner email. Both could be true. I said, "The problem isn't that every good moment was fake. The problem is that when it became inconvenient, you treated her place in our family like something negotiable." Brooke said, "I didn't understand what I was doing." I believe that. Then why isn't that enough? Because Nora still understood what you were doing. She did not have an answer for that. After we handled the venue contract, I stopped taking calls. We lost another chunk of money there. Not all of it, but enough that I felt sick seeing the final total. I had friends tell me I should be happy I got out before the marriage. I was not happy. Relieved sometimes. Certain, yes. But not happy. There was no moment where I walked around feeling victorious. I had lost the person I planned to marry. Nora had lost someone she trusted. Our house felt strange. There were still wedding things everywhere. A box of favor tags. A stack of unused envelopes. The suit I had bought. Nora's blue dress. For a while I left her door open whenever she wanted because she had started sleeping with a hallway light on again. She never said it was because of Brooke. I never asked. A couple of weeks after the wedding date passed, I found Nora sitting on the floor of her room with the flower girl dress in her lap. Not wearing it. Just touching the fabric. I sat in the doorway. You okay? She nodded. Do you want me to put that somewhere else? No. Okay. She looked at the dress. Did Brooke pick it because she liked me? That question hurt in a different way. Yes, I said. You're sure? Yes. Nora frowned. But then she didn't want me there. She made bad choices later. Was the dress fake? No. She thought about that. Kids do not need complicated philosophies. They need adults to stop making them responsible for contradictions. I said, something can be good when it happens and still not last. She nodded slowly. Then she asked, can I still wear it sometime? Sure. Where? I don't know. Dinner. She laughed. It's too fancy. We could go very fancy. She rolled her eyes. A week later I came up with something better. Nothing dramatic. No replacement wedding. No party. I booked a short photo session with a small local studio. Just me and Nora. I told her she could wear whatever she wanted. She chose the blue dress. The shoes were still in the box. She had grown just enough that they were tight, so we bought different ones. At the studio, she was nervous for the first 5 minutes. Then the photographer asked her to stand on a stool, so we were almost the same height, and she started laughing because she said my head looked too big from that angle. We took normal pictures. Some sitting, some standing. One where she put her hands on my shoulders and tried to look serious. One where we both failed to look serious. No wedding flowers. No fake ceremony. No attempt to pretend the dress had always been meant for this. Afterward, Nora asked if she could get one picture printed for her room. I said yes. She picked the one where we were laughing. It is still there. Not because I wanted to turn the whole experience into some lesson or symbol. Honestly, I would have preferred she never needed a new memory attached to that dress. But I was glad the last thing she remembered about wearing it was not being told she made a picture too complicated. April reached out a few months later. She apologized for how she had spoken to me after the bridal shower. I told her I understood why she reacted that way. She said Brooke was doing better. I said I was glad. Then April hesitated and said, Mom still thinks you overreacted. I laughed. That sounds right. She says you could have fixed the ceremony. That wasn't the issue. I know. That was the first time someone from Brooke's side said it without a qualification. April told me she had replayed the family meeting a lot. She said, I kept thinking about how many times Brooke said it was one thing. But every time you showed another paper, there was another thing. I said, that's what finally got me too. She asked if Nora was okay. I said yes. She was not perfectly okay. Neither was I. But she was not carrying the idea that the wedding failed because she needed too much. That mattered. As for Valerie, I never had another real conversation with her. She sent one message through Russell saying she hoped I would eventually see that she had only been trying to protect Brooke. I did not respond. Maybe that was true from her perspective. But protecting an adult daughter by making a 9-year-old feel like evidence of a previous mistake was not something I had any interest in debating. Brooke sent one final email about 6 months after the wedding date. It was not angry. She apologized again. This time she did not blame Valerie. She said she had spent months insisting to herself that her mother had manipulated her, because that explanation made it easier to live with what happened. Then she wrote that Valerie had pressured her, but nobody forced her to send emails, approve timelines, move Nora's seat, or say what she said to Nora. She said, I wanted the clean version too. I just didn't want to admit what had to be removed to get it. I read that sentence more than once. I did not respond immediately. Eventually, I wrote back that I appreciated the apology and wished her well. That was it. No reunion. No friendship. No dramatic closure. Just the end. People have asked me whether I regret canceling everything before calling Brooke one more time. I regret a lot about how we got there. I regret ignoring Valerie's early comments. I regret letting old-fashioned become an excuse. I regret treating Nora's weird questions like normal wedding anxiety instead of evidence that someone had already made her feel uncertain. I regret the money. I regret that Brooke found out at her bridal shower, even though I still do not believe I owed her advance notice after she had already redesigned the ceremony behind my back. But I do not regret ending the marriage before it started. The truth is, I did not cancel because Nora was moved to a different chair. I did not cancel because of a photographer list. I did not even cancel because of one ugly text. I canceled because all of those things pointed in the same direction. Brooke wanted a version of our wedding where my daughter was present enough to be polite, but absent enough not to shape the picture. And once I saw that clearly, I could not unsee what that would mean after the wedding. Birthdays. Vacations. Holidays. Family photos. Decisions about where we lived. Whose needs counted as too much. Which moments were allowed to be ours. Nora was 9. She had already started volunteering to disappear. I was not going to build a marriage that rewarded her for doing it. The framed studio photo is still on her wall. The blue dress is packed away now because she outgrew it. Every once in a while I see the picture when I walk past her room. 2 people laughing. No seating chart. No ceremony lineup. No one cropped out. That is enough for me. If you liked it, don't forget to leave a comment and support the channel by subscribing. See you in the upcoming stories.